Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Radha Kund Bihari, Radha Kund Bihari, Radhe, Radha Kund Bihari, Radha Kund Bihari, Radhe, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Bala Gopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Jai Nam Sankirtana ki Jai.
Prabhupada ki Jai. Gauti Vaishnavrinda.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So now we'll read the invocation from page 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. You can follow along. And try to follow along as best you can. Don't worry about the pronunciations or perfection of the syllables. Just do the best you can. Om अज्ञानातिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथं वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So, as always, we'll start with a recap. So what did we discuss last week? Verse 12. Yes. Anything we remember about verse 12?
There was never a time when you were not here nor I.
There was never a time in which we did not exist, nor the Supreme Lord. Okay. Any other recollections from last week?
There is no start or end to our existence.
There's no beginning or end. Just like in this, where's the beginning of this shape? And where's the end? Right? So, there is no beginning or end. But what is there no beginning or end to?
Soul.
The soul. This body, does it have a beginning and an end?
Yes.
We celebrate its beginning and we fear its end. Right? That's the nature of the body. But the soul, it is eternal. Any other recollections, conclusions? We spoke about moksha. Yeah, and what did we discuss in the context of moksha? Do we cease to exist in moksha?
Just get absorbed or be a part of a larger thing, but there is always the difference between our soul and the Supreme Soul, so to say, and we have a different pedestal altogether, even though we are a part of that. So merging with the power is a part of moksha.
Well,
Not getting disappear cease to exist.
So when we have the concept of moksha, do we cease to exist? Do we lose our individuality?
No.
No.
Right? Our individuality is eternal. So we gave the example of that drop of ocean water. We say the drop of ocean water is part of the ocean. But when that drop is returned back to the ocean, does it lose its individuality?
Yes.
Yes. But you cannot rediscover that individual drop. Right? It becomes one. But the spirit soul, though it is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, it remains eternally distinct. So unlike that drop of ocean water, though it has we have the same makeup as the Supreme Lord, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, we remain eternally individuals. So the important implication for that is, when we talk about moksha, and this is often a topic that's a little bit confused because we don't have the full detail. It is partially correct, but it takes us a little bit further to understand that even in the spiritual world, where we talk about liberation, one maintains their individuality, their identity as spirit soul. So it then implies that we also have, what do we have in the spiritual world then? If I have my individuality,
Body.
I have a body. I have a form. Right? I have a spiritual form. So just like I have a form here, which is temporary, I have my eternal form in the spiritual world. And that is why Krishna is saying, never there was a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor in the future shall either of us cease to be. So this idea of merging into God is not supported and not factually correct. Okay? You can enter into the spiritual realm with God, but God is distinct and we are distinct. Just like a fish who is in the river and making its way to the ocean. The river waters may merge into the ocean waters, but the aquatics, the fish, they go from one body of water to another. But the fish is distinct. So similar is the spirit soul journeys from the material realm, like the river, into the ocean, the spiritual world. One maintains their individuality. And it then means also that the Supreme Lord ultimately is, the Supreme Lord is ultimately what?
Different.
Huh?
Different.
Different, distinct. He's a person. He's a person. We said he was both personal and impersonal. Impersonal refers to the energy, the light of the Lord. So there is a light feature of the Lord. But where is that light coming from? Have you ever wondered? We know when the sunlight hits, we know where is that sun ray coming from? From the sun planet. So where is the light of the Lord coming from?
The Brahman.
From the Lord.
The Brahman effulgence, yeah, where does it come from? It comes from
the Lord.
the body of the Lord in the Sri Ishopanishad. It is explained what the source of this Brahma Jyotir is. So it's coming from the Lord himself. So in the spiritual world, because we have this eternal identity, we may choose to experience our relationship with the Lord in different ways. But ultimately, the relationship between I and a person is much more deeper and stronger than between I and some impersonal object. Okay? I can have a relationship with my neighbor at a deeper level than I can have a relationship with the sunlight, just to make a comparison. Okay? So we learned many things last week, but this is one of the things that we have this eternal self. But because we are eternal and the Lord is eternal, does that mean we're the same?
No.
Eko bahunam. But of all the eternals, one, Eko, is maintaining all of us. It means our existence, though we are eternal, it is dependent on the Lord. The Supreme Lord is our maintainer, though we have this eternal feature. Okay. So now we're going to discuss this very famous verse. You may have heard me recite this verse many, many times in our different discussions. And this is a foundational verse in our Bhagavad Gita. We'll talk a little bit about what that means. But let's put in context where we are in the dialogue to understand why Krishna is speaking this verse. So if we go back to the first chapter, Arjuna had presented all of his reasons why he should not fight. And they seemed very compelling. And we may wonder, wow, how is Krishna going to answer these now? And we said he should not fight for these different reasons. But Arjuna's logic and conclusions did not bring about peace of mind for him. Meaning, his own ability to find the solutions to his dilemmas did not work. And how do we know? What did we see in the beginning of the second chapter? What was the mood of Arjuna after he had expressed all of his logic? Was he satisfied? I've analyzed everything and now I have the answer on which I can settle on nicely?
More confused.
He was confused, more confused than ever. And not only was confused, he became fearful, he became stressed, he was shaking, his voice was choking up. Right? A very distressed situation. And we know when we're in a distressed situation, what is the one thing we want as fast as possible? Solutions. You want to get out of that. And if we have a good friend who sees us in need, in a desperate condition, are they going to take their time finding a solution for us? Are they going to beat around the bush for a while? No. Are they going to talk about the weather and politics and who won the game last night? No. They're going to get to the point. And why are they going to get to the point? To bring us to a steady position as quickly as possible. So now remember, Arjuna in the 7th and 8th verse, what did he do? What did Arjuna do in the 7th and 8th verse?
Ask for help.
Surrender.
He asked for help. He surrendered. And why did he ask for help and surrender?
Because he was in misery.
Because he was in misery and
He wanted a solution, right?
he wanted a solution. But why did he go and surrender? He came to one conclusion.
He was sure he cannot solve by himself, and Krishna can solve.
Both he was sure of. He was convinced he could not solve it himself, and he was convinced Krishna could. It's a two-step process. One, we have to come to our own understanding. I've been trying, and it's not working. And I know this will work. So Arjuna did that. Krishna spoke his first instruction last week. And in this week, he's speaking this very, very important verse. And you're going to hear it over and over again, and hopefully you'll remember it. This is actually the first verse I ever memorized in Bhagavad Gita. So, and then I went back and memorized the first verse of the first chapter, but this is the first verse. So we'll read the verse, and if you don't mind, we'll read the Sanskrit, because it's hopefully a verse you all learn. So I'll read and you can repeat. Dehino smin yatha dehe.
Dehino smin yatha dehe.
Dehino smin yatha dehe.
Dehino smin yatha dehe.
Kaumaram yauvanam jara.
Kaumaram yauvanam jara.
Kaumaram yauvanam jara.
Kaumaram yauvanam jara.
Tatha dehantara-praptir.
Tatha dehantara-praptir.
Tatha dehantara-praptir.
Tatha dehantara-praptir.
Dhiras tatra muhyati.
Dhiras tatra muhyati.
Dhiras tatra muhyati.
Dhiras tatra muhyati.
the translation?
As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is never bewildered by such a change. Purport. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet, the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering according to one's work in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least life in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existence. So, in either case, there was no cause of lamentation.
We'll just read this next paragraph and then we'll discuss.
Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitutions of the individual soul, the super soul, and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies.
Okay. It's okay. So we'll stop there. We'll read just these two paragraphs and then maybe we'll discuss a little bit about this last paragraph, seeing on time permitting. So, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into a new body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So what was Arjuna's fear or concern or bewilderment?
That you'll kill his relatives, so you take their lives, but he was not understanding that he's just taking the body and not the soul.
So his fear was, I do not want to kill those on the other side of the battlefield. So, and that was a very distressful situation for Arjuna. And we can imagine be equally or more distressful for us. It would be a very horrific thing to encounter. So, in the very first verse of this second chapter, we drew an important point of where our compassion should be shown to. And everybody remembers, where should we show our compassion? To the soul and not to the body. Or we can say at least the soul and then the body. Right? And why the soul? Because that's what's important. That's what's eternal. That's who we are. The body is temporary. Just like we give the example, if there is an accident on the road, when we come upon that accident, who do we first attend to make sure they're okay? The people, the driver. Then we may worry about the vehicle. But first things first, are the people okay? This body is like a car. And what is the driver within this body? The soul. The car doesn't go anywhere without a driver. It just sits in the parking lot. It needs something to move it. That is the driver. Similarly, this body is just made up of air, earth, fire, water, ether. These minerals. It needs a life force to drive, to move this body. And what is that driver within this body? The soul. Right? It is the soul. So, we know between soul and body, our compassion, our attention, when we say compassion, it means our effort to help, our love, should go to the soul. Right? So Arjuna was bewildered about this. So Krishna is speaking this very important verse. And we call this verse a foundational verse. What does a foundation mean? Any engineers in here? Huh?
If the foundation is strong, then everything else will.
The basis.
If the foundation is strong, then everything else from there will go nice and smooth, right? And if the foundation is not strong, what happens?
Shake, building shake.
You can have a beautiful oceanfront house with nice facilities, but if it's not on a strong foundation, what happens? So what is the foundational understanding for us? What is the foundation of our spiritual journey?
Yes, spirit souls.
I am spirit souls. I am not this body. But knowing that alone is not sufficient. Otherwise we would have been done weeks ago, months ago. How many weeks it took us to know we're, at least here, we are not this body, we're a spirit soul? I think it was the second week. Right? So knowing it is one thing. Realizing it is a whole nother thing. And what does it mean to realize that I am spirit soul, I'm not this body?
We
Okay.
need to test when in our day to day, when we kind of understand, and we can understand also that the pain agony we are undergoing, that's also kind of a temporary thing, because should not be too much affected by it. It's affecting just our body.
Okay. Let me ask you, how many of you drove here? At least some of you. I know some of you are close by. So when you're driving in your car, do you ever think, I am the car, and I'm spinning on Big Beaver and crooks and...
No.
Well, we have clear understanding. I am the driver, and this is my car. Right? Now, how many of us have woke up and realized, I am sitting within this body of a car, and that same distinction? Anyone? It's difficult. It's difficult. Right? And so, Krishna is going to try to get us to see, again, that we are this living force within this body. The living force is spirit, soul, eternal. Nityo nityananam, chaitananas chaitananam. It is the eternal. The body, constantly changing. So the foundation is this, and its realization. Everything else we do in spirituality must be built upon this understanding. Right? But having a foundation alone, is that enough? If I just know I'm spirit, soul, and not this body, do I have everything I need to know? This person said, no. Where's the master bedroom? Where am I going to live? A foundation, this jnana Krishna is giving. This section of chapter 2 is jnana, knowledge. But jnana, this foundation, isn't sufficient to complete the story. Right? We need the rest of the structure. And the rest of the structure tells us, okay, if I'm spirit soul, then what else do I need to know?
How to make soul happy.
How to make the soul happy.
So it's anyway, eternal happiness, right?
The soul is eternal happiness, but we're not experiencing it. So how to experience it? Right? What is the soul's activity? What is its sanatana dharma, its eternal occupation? Who is the supreme soul? We must build all this other knowledge. What is the practices that will awaken this realization? But it's built on that. So you need both. Otherwise, we'll say, why do we need a foundation? Let's just go straight to the Bhagavad Gita. Well, that's like building a house and not having a very sound footing for it to sit upon. Okay? So we need both. So Krishna is giving us this foundational verse, and from there he's going to build. So if I ask you all to bring your baby pictures, and you hold them up, you would say, this is? What What would you say?
Me.
This is me. Right? But I would say, no, you've completely changed. This person is saying, this is me throughout. But what is the me?
So,
The soul. The body is changed completely from boyhood to youth to old age. Do we agree the body has changed completely? Medical science says every 7 years, every cell in your body has been regenerated. Which means every 7 years we get a completely new body. There isn't one single cell within our body that was present 7 years prior. So we get a completely new body every 7 years. Now, did we lament at our 7th birthday? At our 14th birthday? At our 21st birthday? Are those the ones we don't celebrate? No. So Krishna is saying that your body has already been changed. So what's the difference when it changes into a new one? What's the difference? It's the soul constantly going through these different cycles. But why is this change of the body at the end so bewildering when our whole life we have been changing bodies? Any of us have thought like this before? And that's why Krishna opens very early with this strong statement to get Arjuna to understand that his fighting in the battle has nothing to do with the soul. Meaning he cannot impact the soul. So Arjuna's thought process should be on whether to fight or not fight. On what basis should he decide?
He's not killing the body, he's killing the body, not the soul.
He should understand he's not killing the body, but he's killing the body but not touching the soul. Right? And on what criteria should he evaluate, should I fight or not?
This is duty.
What is his duty? So he can look at the duty level and say, what is my responsibility? So there's on one platform that he can decide whether to fight or not. Right? What is another platform by which he would decide
what will happen if I perform my duty? Right?
what will happen to that person? Meaning, will good happen or will bad happen? Right? So he may decide, if he has a choice, he may decide, well, will good come for them or bad come for them? Right? Now, when we say, will good come for them or bad come for them? Who are we focused on? Who should he be focused on? The soul. Will the fighting be good for their soul or bad for their soul? Arjuna, in his analysis, was thinking the fighting was bad for their body. Right? He said they would lose their life. So that we can agree. It was bad for their body. But he didn't think, but what is good for their soul? Okay? It is like making a decision of what's good for my car before making a decision of what's good for the driver. If you have $5, are you going to feed the car or are you going to feed the driver if both are hungry? Right? You're going to focus on the needs of the soul, the driver. So, Arjuna, his confusion was lying there. Right? So, now at the end of the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada begins to comment what was going to happen to the souls of Bhishma and Drona? Were they going to be destroyed? Never shall they cease to exist. So we know that's that. Check that box. No harm is coming to them. Okay? So what was going to happen to their soul?
It's going to release their soul so that they can transcend.
It was going to release their soul so they can transcend. Transcend to what?
I don't know, in the next birth or in heaven?
Yep.
Next birth
To the spiritual world.
To this, Srila Prabhupada is speaking about the spiritual world. So, if you're driving a Honda Civic, okay? Somebody comes here. Here's the keys to a brand new BMW. I just want the keys to your Honda Civic.
When is he coming?
Anybody is going to hesitate in making that trade? No, I'm not going to hesitate. Right? So Bhishma and Drona had the opportunity to be elevated to a higher platform. Does that mean if anyone loses their body, they automatically go to the heavenly worlds? Spiritual? No. So what determines our next body?
Our karma.
Our karma.
Last thought, maybe.
Our last thought and our karma. So our desires, antakale chamameva smaram muktva kalevaram, ya prayati sabadbhava, yati yatnasya samshaya. Whatever I think of. If I think of the Lord at the time of death, that's what I'll achieve. And my karma. See, the different types of bodies are based on my karma. And we know different types of bodies can experience happiness in different degrees. Right? How much happiness the tree can experience? Can it go to the beach? Can it enjoy an iPhone? Can it enjoy samosa and pizza? No. If you give a pig a very nice, clean place to live, nice, comfortable bed, penthouse apartment, overlooking the ocean, it'll be happy? Because it has a form in which it finds its enjoyment in a very dirty place. In the human form of life, we can experience, relatively speaking, a broader range of pleasures, a higher range of happiness. How we got this human form of life? Just randomly? Due to our karma, due to good karma. And if we incur lots of bad karma, what kind of bodies we may get next? Animal bodies, tree bodies, bird, and maybe a lower form of human body even. We know even in human life, right? Some have relatively nice situations and some less. So Bhishma and Drona, because they were noble souls, as Srila Prabhupada says, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existences.
Even though they're noble souls, but the karma in that birth where they're not in the purest form, right?
And we'll talk about that in a few verses. Srila Prabhupada comments about the activities of them, were diluted by some other material desires, their need for sustenance and things like that, and so they stood silent when they should not have. But nonetheless, they were very noble souls, and we know Bhishma Dev particularly played a role. He's one of the 12 Mahajans. And that's a very intricate discussion. But the nature of their past activity was going to lead them to success. And we know they were leaving their bodies where? in front of the Lord at Kurukshetra, which is a very spiritual place. Which means one is surely elevated to spiritual world. Actually, warriors were fleeing from all over the world to come to this battle. Because a Kshatriya knows that if I die on the battlefield in a holy place, in the presence of the Supreme Lord, I'm guaranteed victory. So they would come and they didn't care which side they joined. They were just joining. Because regardless of what happened, they were going to, because they understood, I'm not worried about this body. I'm worried about the destination of the soul. I'm not worried about this gurta. I'm worried about my life. So this is the important understanding. Now, who is sober? Clearly not this person. Right? But what does a sober person mean? What does it mean when we say a sober person?
Not contaminated, not confused.
So we can say the not contaminated, so we can say the absence of intoxicants is one definition of sober. But then you said not confused. That's a little bit more precise. And not confused amidst chaos. Amidst lots of confusion. Are we amidst chaos on a relative basis?
Yes.
Always. Is it only chaotic at certain times of the day? Certain days of the week? Certain months of the year? Is it only chaotic in certain parts of the world? Is it only chaotic to the men or to the women? To the tall or to the short? No. Chaos is around us all. So who is a dhira? Sober person. Which means they are peaceful amidst chaos. How many of us want a peaceful mind amidst chaos? How many of us would consider it to be very powerful? Because an unpeaceful mind leads to really good decisions. We make the best decisions when our mind is a tornado. But through the thick of all kinds of turbulences, if we could see very clearly, calmly, that's a very strong position, right? So who is a dhira? Who is a sober person? Prabhupada describes in this second paragraph. So if we want to be a sober person, meaning calm, peaceful mind, how do I achieve that? Of course, we're all sober now, meaning free of intoxicants. But are we a dhira? Are we free from the fear of the changing of bodies? Anybody is that peaceful? No. But remember the verse. It says, a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So how to become a dhiras? What is the? I don't think I put my. Please. So what are the? Prabhupada describes in the second paragraph. What are the characteristics to become a dhira, a sober person, a peaceful person amidst chaos?
We should not be like very aggressive and judging things and all. We should be very calm.
Okay.
Any given situation.
So that I can say is a symptom.
To set your mind completely focused on spiritual activities.
If you realize that you are not a body, then all relations or all contaminations that comes when you consider yourself as a body will automatically disappear. So if you consider in your soul form, then automatically probably will become
Somebody who
dhira.
Somebody who has very strong control over their emotions.
Someone who has a very strong control of emotions. I'll also put that as a symptom. Right? So when I am a dhira, and Krishna will talk from the 54th verse to the 72nd verse of this chapter of a stikta prajna, this person in divine consciousness. He'll give many symptoms, characteristics of how to find this nature.
What about if we also want to do all the activities which will make our soul happy? Then we will definitely become a dhiras in that way. If anything, any confusion we will have.
So what is required to know how to do that? So Prabhupada says, a man who has perfect knowledge of 3 things. What are the 3 things? Soul, super soul, and nature.
What is nature?
What is nature? Material and spiritual. Meaning the material and spiritual worlds. Okay? Remember we said there are 5 topics in the Bhagavad Gita. If we knew all 5 topics, we would never be confused. 5 topics being soul, super soul, Ishvara, Jiva. Then Prakriti, nature, karma, laws of action, reaction, and time. Time. These 5 topics are the topics of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is going to speak about all of them. And these 5 give us the clear roadmap to everything in our life. So a dhira, a person, is not one who can hold this pose for prolonged periods of time. Or one who has a glow about them. Or one who can levitate in the air. Or seems never to get angry or upset. A dhira is one, and Prabhupada says, has perfect knowledge of the constitution. What does of the constitution mean? The makeup and position, right? The situation of the soul, the super soul, and the realm in which we live. So remember the foundation. What is the foundation again?
Soul.
I am soul. But that alone is not sufficient to bring about happiness. Because what's missing in that information?
Food for the soul.
Relation.
What is the relationship of the soul with everything else? Right? I must know not just that I am soul, so that is the first part, but then what is the soul? What is the nature of the soul that brings about this peace and happiness? That is the house. Foundation without a house is just a hole in the ground. House without a foundation falls over. You need both. So Prabhupada is explaining soul, super soul, and the nature. So when we understand I am spirit soul, I am part and parcel of Krishna. And I have one eternal occupation or function. And what is that eternal function? To serve. To be in loving service of Krishna. Not to be servant when exam times are coming, when I'm up for a promotion, when I've got the flu and I want to get over it, or many, many other circumstances in which we sometimes go to the Lord. We are the servant of the Lord eternally. He's eternally our loving Father. My hand is always the servant of the body because it is part of my body. We being part of Krishna means we are always intended to serve Krishna. So this peaceful consciousness only comes when we remember our eternal position. If I'm confused about what I'm supposed to do in life, how will I find happiness? So who am I? Soul. And what is my eternal activity? Service to Krishna. That's it. All this knowledge we're acquiring is going to sum up into who am I, who is God, and what is my relationship. In the next verse, Krishna says, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata. One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Is Krishna telling us here to be happiness? We should ignore both happiness and distress? Is he saying we should be emotionless? He's saying we should ignore what?
The fluctuation, the change.
The fluctuations too?
The two extremes.
Our own on self-state maybe.
But the fluctuations relating to the
Disturbance.
body. Because the soul is only happy, eternal, peaceful. But the ups and downs, happiness, distress, hot and cold, they are experienced at the body. So Krishna is basically saying, driving down the street in your car, if a stone hits your car, don't yell, ouch. You weren't hit, your car was hit. But because we're so attached to that car, we feel the pain. Right? Because we're so attached to this body, we experience through consciousness its ups and downs. But Krishna is saying, the happiness and distress of the body is going to come like, what does he compare it to? It's a beautiful analogy Krishna is giving here. Can we control the changing of the seasons? Then why complain about it? Just deal with it. Why let the changing of the seasons affect your consciousness? Meaning, come to a higher platform. Get beyond the effects of the body and come to the platform of the soul. Whether it's winter or summer, the soul is eternal servant of the Lord. Whether the body is in having some happiness or distress, the soul is eternally in loving service with the Lord. So the consciousness is to elevate our thought process. It's like a boat. A boat that is in the ocean is going to go up and down, no matter what. Right? But if you pull that boat just 1 inch above the crest of the water, it finds steadiness. The ocean is still raging. We didn't stop the ocean from raging. We just pulled the boat out of the water. What we're trying to do is pull our consciousness away from this body into the nature of the soul. Because Krishna is saying, yes, the body is going to have ups and downs. What is the source of the happiness and distress of this body? Where is it coming from? Why do good things happen and why do bad things happen to us? Past karma. That's going to come. Don't let it affect your consciousness. Don't let it affect your state of mind. Because you are spirit soul. Transcend your thought process. So Krishna is telling Arjuna very clearly in this section, this verse, don't be bewildered by the changing bodies of Bhishma and Drona. Think about what will happen to their soul. So before you decide, let me explain to you. And he's going to continue to explain. What happens to the soul when it leaves the body? What is the determinant of where it goes? What is your duty and responsibility? What is your scenario? Then you decide. But don't decide your life based on what's good for your car. Decide what's good for your life based on what's good for you, the spirit soul. So this is a very important verse. So we are aspiring to become dhira, peaceful, amidst chaos. Don't try to stop the chaos around you. It's not possible. Instead, we're going to see how to stop its effect on me. If it's raining outside, I can't stop the rain, but I can carry an umbrella and stop the rain from making me wet. So our bhakti, our understanding of I am spirit soul, is like this giant umbrella. Yeah, it's going to rain and shine. There's nothing I can do about that. But I can control how it affects me. And that is the strength of spiritual consciousness. To be strong, calm, thoughtful through the ups and downs of life. It is a very powerful position, and it is readily achievable as soon as we realize I am spirit soul. Okay? Questions, comments?
One very basic question. So
Yeah.
when we are saying we are a soul, so it's just an energy, or what we are referring to soul?
We're referring to you. But now, what is the soul? No, the soul is part and parcel of Krishna. It's a form. It's taken a compressed form. So we're going to discuss next week how big the soul is, where it resides. We're going to get... Now Krishna is going to speak about the science of the soul. Because he has established the soul, and now he's going to talk about how it cannot be cut, how it cannot be changed, how big it is, where it sits, all the other aspects of it. He's going to continue until verse 30 to give us this knowledge of the soul. But the soul is this Sat, Chit, and Ananda. That's the three ingredients that has a form, and that is me. It is not I have a soul. I am the soul. To say I have a soul means there's some distinction between I and the soul. Like, I have a t-shirt. I don't say I t-shirt. I say I have a t-shirt, which means I am distinct from the t-shirt. I have a hand, but I am not the hand. The eye and the hand are distinct.
This is my body.
My body.
So my is different than body.
My is distinct from the body. So it's a very subtle topic, not so easy to understand, and that is why Krishna speaks many verses, and Srila Prabhupada gives us nice commentary to help understand this.
Can soul be a synonym for consciousness?
Yes. The symptom, the proof of the presence of the soul is consciousness. This water bottle has no soul. Why? There's no consciousness. The dead body has no soul because there's no consciousness. So consciousness is the symptom of the soul. I wouldn't quite say synonymous, but it's when there's consciousness, we know the soul is present. As soon as there is no consciousness, we know the soul is. So whatever has consciousness has a soul.
Not a different question, and this has been bothering me since last week. When we talked about individuality...
Thank you for remembering.
It was the first slide again this morning, this evening. So you mentioned infinity when we talk about individuality.
Yes.
Why do we use the term infinity and not zero? Why not shunya? Because shunya doesn't have, it has its own individuality, but when it merges with something, it loses its own and gathers a form or whatever.
Because Krishna is saying that doesn't happen.
Now, like a drop in the ocean, this should be a zero, because the way I'm looking at it is, if the drop is infinity and if it merges with the ocean, now the ocean is into the form of the drop rather than the other way around.
But the spirit soul never merges into God. And it is one of the big... It never... we are a part and parcel, but we never become a part, we never become merged into God. See, that is the misconception. It is an eternally separated expansion. So when we say separate, it means it is separated, and it never merges back. That is the specific... There are many different types of expansions of Krishna. The jiva is an eternally separated expansion. And that's why he says, never shall you cease to exist, nor I. Because if the soul merged back into God, then we would cease to exist. We would become something else.
I mean, from an individuality perspective, doesn't that what happens?
No.
My interpretation, or at least the way I understood it, was that I'm an individual, I have my own individuality, but when I move on, I'm loosely using the term here, merge with the individuality of the eternal soul.
Yeah, and that's the misconception that exists prominently. It's a convenient logic. Prabhupada is commenting in the last paragraph of this purport and the last paragraph of the prior purport on this specific philosophy. We didn't go so much in depth on it because it's a little technical. But think that the soul goes from one home to another. Moksha is changing my residence. I am changing my passport. I am not changing anything else. I'm going to one realm, which is the material world, to another realm, which is the spiritual world. But in the spiritual world, I'm going to walk around. I'm going to interact with others. I'm going to interact with the Supreme Lord. I'm going to experience sunlight, foodstuffs, everything. As an individual, but with consciousness that my existence is in service with the Lord. So going to the spiritual world doesn't mean I merge into some consciousness. That is why Krishna said this very important verse. Never is there time that exists, nor is there a concept of voidism. So there is a philosophy that suggests that everything just disappears. That also is not supported by the Spirit. Otherwise, we would cease to exist. In fact, there is eternal, unlimited variety in the spiritual world, which is what makes it so attractive. Okay? You have any questions?
Here's a question from Ram Rao. While sleeping, we don't have the consciousness, then how do you relate it to soul?
While in sleeping, we don't have consciousness.
Yeah, while sleeping, we don't have the consciousness.
But we have consciousness. If while you're sleeping and I pinch your toe, you'll wake up.
Well, there's fire.
We have consciousness, but we are in a subdued consciousness. But there's consciousness, right? So the presence of the soul is there.
We discussed soul itself has eternal happiness, but we experience it almost 98%, I don't know, mostly all its expressions through our body.
Yeah.
Right. So in the case of Arjuna, even though Krishna was giving him a knowledge that you kill their bodies, you are not killing their souls, they are more achieved divinely spiritual because they are the noble souls. But within that moment of time, he was giving pain to their soul through their body because he was going to kill them. Now there is a momentarily or maybe a prolonged, in terms of hours, in terms of time, whatever that may be, there will be a prolonged pain that their soul is experiencing. It may be because of their karma, etc. But ultimately they are end up in getting that pain before they achieve the higher state in the future form. And within that moment, they may be thinking, they may be doing karma or vikarma or giving curse to somebody who is giving them the pain, right? I mean, that's difficult to understand.
Yeah. But whether one is aware of the ultimate or not, still the result is there. And sometimes there is some pain, when you go to the doctor, sometimes you have to take an injection. There's some pain one endures to obtain the freedom from the disease.
Yeah, but that is known, right?
What's that?
That is known. We don't curse the doctor because doctor is killing.
Whether I curse the doctor or not, the outcome is fixed. Right? If I put my hand into fire or not, whether I know it's going to burn or not, the result is coming. So the outcome for the soul in this scenario is going to lead to elevation.
Yeah, I'm asking a little bit. When I'm doing the action, then since I don't know and I'm experiencing a pain, I'm creating karma by giving curse to somebody. Now I'm creating a bad thought, which is not. I mean, because I'm cursing the person who's giving me.
There's
the
no
pain.
karma associated with thought. Karma is associated with action.
So if you think about something bad, you are not performing any bad.
The beauty of Krishna's love, until I actually performed a sinful act, there's no reaction.
It doesn't have a logical reason what we think becomes an action.
Yeah, that's why we should not stop. But I'm just answering your point. The thought of having some, oh, this is not right, or isn't going to create the sinful reaction. And before they can act on it, they've been liberated. And don't worry, because the Lord says this happens, all these minor things will get clarified. Because if you have a momentary...
No, that was the ultimate example of death and life in the battlefield.
Yeah.
But in the real life situation, like the way we live, right? I mean, we end up in a lot of pain, either mental, physical, or because of somebody's actions, we are feeling pain, even though now we are realizing and taking this knowledge. But ultimately, we end up doing something, right?
But in that example, if someone walks up to me and says, "You're ugly," and I smack them, well, I haven't realized I'm the soul. Because who did they call ugly? The body. They called the body ugly. Did they see what the look of my soul is? No. But because I identify with the body, then I reacted. And so I carry a reaction. But now I'm studying Bhagavad Gita. Next time somebody calls me Bhagavad Gita, maybe I'll... No. And then maybe the third time, fourth time. So yeah, you're not going to be perfect in your reactions initially to realize and remember your spirit soul. But the goal is to begin to understand it. Even after the fact. Oh, what did I do? I made a mistake. Well, at least the recognition of that, the assessment of that is bringing you one step forward to ultimately being able to not create any reactions against things on the body. And that is the symptoms of a devotee. Krishna will speak in the 6th chapter. These very beautiful verses, 7, 8, and 9. Where he says, when one controls the mind, these amazing things manifest. Including, one can see their enemy and their friend at an equal level. That's not dumb. That's intelligent and great strength. But even further, one experiences honor and dishonor. Now that's the strength of a controlled mind. Krishna is speaking the importance of making the mind your friend, not your enemy. And the only way to control the mind is through devotional service, through bhakti. One will control the mind. So yes, as we begin to practice spirituality, our mind will come into control. But it's not going to be perfect the first day you walk out of here and you're completely, equipoised. No, I mean, that takes practice. So our goal is to get a little bit better each day, a little bit more tolerant, a little bit more understanding. And the more knowledge we acquire, the more faith we develop, the easier it becomes. And soon enough, it becomes extraordinarily easy. What seems impossible today becomes just like that marathon runner. The first day that person went out to running 26 miles seemed impossible. But the impossible becomes possible by practice.
So, can we consider faith as a fundamental aspect of self-realization or devotion or going back to the Godhead, rather than having an inquiry attitude? Because there are certain sections of the people, they always wanted to inquire and have that experience, then only I will develop the faith. Which is better to faith or inquiring attitude?
There are 9 steps to awakening love of Krishna. There are 9 steps. And the first step is Shraddha, faith. Faith that there was something here. If y'all didn't have faith, we didn't all have faith, why would we come here? Right? We're coming here hopefully to develop more faith. Otherwise, I mean, the decor is nice, but it's not that nice. The food's good, but not that good. You know, I mean, we're not coming here to hang out. No, there's something we're latching onto, right? So our faith is developing. And the inquiry is meant to help propel our faith, to exhaust the doubts, to extinguish the doubts. So they go hand in hand. But Krishna speaks later about this doubter. This person who is a doubter is in a very difficult position because they'll never find happiness. Because they doubt the happiness in this material world and they doubt the happiness in the spiritual world. So they lose both.
So you have to stop the inquiring attitude at a certain level. Right?
Not stop the inquiring attitude.
Okay.
Stop the doubting attitude. And there's a difference. There's a distinct difference. The inquiry can go on forever. But the inquiry should go in a way of, I know this is right, but I just need a little help seeing it. Versus, someone has to show to me it's right. So the faith is, it's right, but I don't see it. So faith, I'm spirit soul. But Krishna, I am so foolish. I don't see it. And thus, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. Who opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge? My spiritual master. Who helped me see it. So faith is the first step. From faith, one begins to sadhu sangha, associate. From association, one then begins to practice chanting, reading, prasada. That's bhajana kriya. That's step 3. From that, what happens? One becomes free of the pollutions of the heart. Anartha nivritti. All the anarthas become gone. That's the 4th step. So by faith, association, practice, we become cleansed, purified. What happens when we become purified? One becomes very steady. Now, there's nothing in the heart pulling us in multiple directions. I become very fixed, nishta. When I become fixed in devotional service, then the taste of bhakti really comes. We're getting preliminary tastes. We're getting very preliminary tastes. Whatever you may be enjoying now is very, very preliminary. When one comes to this ruchi state, after anarthas are removed, after one is fixed, the taste is so sweet that one becomes addicted, attached. One doesn't chant their rounds because they are told, I will chant my rounds. One can't stop chanting because it's so sweet. This is ashakti. This is the 7th step. And then this spontaneous, ecstatic love comes. Bhava. And then full love of God. So there's a very, I'd say, scientific process of how it builds. And it starts with Shraddha, some faith. But not blind faith, developing. So the inquiry is good. But it should be inquiry and practice together.
But it should start with faith.
I can't say it should start with faith, it should come to faith. And from faith it should come to, the only reason we're associated here is some faith. And then we're going to chant. Hopefully all of you are chanting every day. Why? Why are you doing bhajana kriya? Some experience. It's okay? Any other questions?
Here's a question from Sunny Thakur, Prabhuji. Are we talking about Kurukshetra of 5,000 years old or the real of 21st century?
Well, spiritually they are non-different. Materially we may see difference. These holy places are not seen by the eyes, they are seen by the ears. Meaning when we go to the holy dhams, we hear about the potency. So yeah, we may see construction, we may see some trash industries, we may see some activities that are not so nice, we may see all kinds of things. That is because we're trying to see the holy dham with our eyes. We cannot see them with our eyes. They're not pure enough to see. So there is no difference in the holy dhams today or in the past. They're all potent. And thus we should go and take residence in those holy dhams as is recommended, and not be disturbed by the external features, but we should meditate on the internal features of the holy dhams. Any other questions or comments?
Guruji, I had one question. How do we know we are progressing in the right direction? So it's a basic question. So
that's a great question. How to know if we are progressing? Well, like anything, we look for symptoms, right? If I'm going to the gym, I measure my progress by my biceps or belly or some feature. I measure, right? If I'm studying in books, I measure by grades, right? So it's a good question. It's an important question because meaning you have some desire for progress. Sometimes we get into it, we don't really care. So it's very important. So the best measure Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur gave was that we can measure our progress not by how many verses we have memorized, not by how nice we sing bhajans, not even by how nice we may speak about the Bhagavad Gita or Krishna. We measure our progress by how much we have detached from our material bodily activities. That is the measure. And now the practical way to do this. When did we start this seminar? January. So almost this example. I say look 6 months prior. So look back to January. And saying, do I have more or less material attachments? If I can say I have less, I have made some progress. And 6 months from now, don't try to look day to day. That's too short of a time frame. And then see. That'll be your measure. And he gave the example. I told the boat story. So this is the story of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. Gave this example. That once a marriage party came to the river, and they were preparing for the wedding ceremony down the river, some long distance. So they came one evening, and they had hired a nice boat and a boatman to row the party down to the site of the wedding the next morning. So they boarded the boat, they found their places. It was later in the evening, and they all went and took rest. And so the boatman began to row. And he was rowing and rowing and rowing. And then as the morning sun came up, the guests began to rise. And they're looking around and saying, huh? We haven't moved. What happened? And they began panicking. The wedding is going to start. And they started to chastise the boatman. What are you doing? He says, what do you mean? I've been rowing all night. Look, and they saw he was all sweated and tired and famished. I've been rowing all night. They thought, what? Let me check. What is the source? They began to investigate. And they found that they had not untied the boat from the tree. So we may do all this spiritual activity, but if we are not untying ourselves from the material attachments, we'll not make much progress. So Bhaktivedanta explained that the progress is measured by the amount of detachment. And we'll see the Sthitta Prajna coming in the 55th, 56th verses. What is the characteristic, the symptom by which we can see who is in this divine consciousness? They are fully free of all material desires. So that's the measure of our progress. It's a nice question, thank you. Any other questions?
If you don't have any material desires, then what is the motivation to go to office? And what is so how we can engage in the material activities with the devotional consciousness?
Don't engage in material activities. Does that mean then I'm just going to bang on a mridanga all day long. Krishna is going to tell us to become desireless. Desireless. Prabhupada comments, what it means to be desireless is to be free of material desires. We cannot be desireless. We are active. We're going to have desires. So desirelessness means not trying to empty the mind of everything. That is not possible. Nor is it fun. What Krishna says is you empty your mind of all material desires and become fully spiritual desires. So how is going to the office my spiritual desire? Does it mean that I cannot go to the office? No. Krishna is telling Arjuna, you go to your office and you fight. If it meant that yes, perfection of spirituality means you don't do your job, then he told Arjuna, you go to the forest. But he said, no, you go to your office. You go to your corner office. You have a big job. So what's Krishna telling him? He's saying, you do your duty. You do your job. You maintain your family. You maintain your relationships. But you detach from the fruits of those. And you attach to Krishna. So he's going to say that you do your duty, but you detach from the fruit. Ma phaleshu anachana. Right? We always quote the first part of that verse. Karmani dakara state, right? No, that's fine. But ma phala, no fruits. So you go to office. So what does going to the office mean? No fruits. It means boss offers paychecks and no thanks, I'm good. You take that paycheck. Even you have an opportunity to get more paycheck, you go for it. You work hard. You acquire promotions. You acquire more paycheck, no problem. But then the question comes, what am I going to do with that paycheck? Am I going to feed the body or feed the soul? That's where the distinction comes. What am I going to do with that paycheck, that result? And the devotee, he goes to the office, carries a briefcase, has laptop, cell phones, suits, tie, whatever they need for their job. They have. But they don't have attachment to the sense enjoyment from the fruits of that work. So it means that they use whatever comes from the work in devotional service. They maintain their home as a temple. They maintain their family as devotees. They maintain their relationships with friends and devotees. They build temples, print books, distribute kartals, whatever it takes. So, becoming desireless, losing material desires, doesn't mean we don't go to work. So going to work is not a material activity for a devotee.
It's a duty.
It's not his duty. It's his bhakti. It's his pure bhakti. Devotee goes to office, materialist goes to office. One is not wearing a dhoti kurta and one's wearing a suit. No, they both may be wearing a suit. What's the difference? The devotee knows, I am not the doer. Krishna is the doer. He knows prakrute kriya manani gunai karmani sarvashahan kara vimudatma kartahamiti manyate. He knows who is the doer. And so when he knows who is the doer, when the fruits come, he knows who they are to be enjoyed with. So the devotee climbs the corporate ladder. The materialist tries to climb the corporate ladder as well. But the distinction is in what is the consciousness. So we cannot judge by dress. It is by consciousness. So, yes, everyone must be successful. Otherwise, Krishna would have spoke to the renunciate, or he would have told Arjuna, you give up your duty and you go to the forest. And he told him the exact opposite. Arjuna wanted to go to the forest, and he said, shh, come back. Because going to the forest is not good for you. You're a Kshatriya. It's not in your nature.
So when you even perform as a segue, if you're performing your duty, you're expected to look at the repercussions of your duty as well.
Yeah, you can't be blindly doing your duty. You must understand. Yeah, you must do your duty with intelligence. And that's why ultimately, who gives us our duty? Who can guide us in what our duty is? And? Guru guides us. Okay, Krishna has given all the instructions. Now what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to take this job or do this, or am I supposed to do that? How can you? That's where the Guru comes and gives the fine tuning. Because if we make our own decisions, forget it. Our own decisions brought us not here, but to this place. And it is our decisions. And we always have the free will to choose. Arjuna surrendered himself, saying, Krishna, now you tell me. Because he knew that would help him. That's the only reason Arjuna did. And remember, every one of Krishna's instructions, only one goal. Not to better his position. Krishna has everything. It is to better Krishna, Arjuna. There's a beautiful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam which says that Krishna inspires one to become his devotee. Krishna inspires one to become his devotee. So that one can become fully satisfied. And then the nice, as if he was benefiting. Think about that. Krishna inspires one to serve him, right? So one would think, well, yeah, that's nice. He's inspiring one to serve, so for Krishna to benefit. And he's saying, no. As if. Who is benefiting? Because they become fully satisfied. How many of us want to be fully satisfied? So Krishna will inspire Arjuna to give up everything and to render service. But it is for Arjuna's benefit. Krishna has everything. Okay. Anything else? Shall we chant?
Nitya Krishna last week.